Leadoff pitch. Called strike three. You can bend the beam into a W. The Gary South Shore RailCats defeat the Lincoln Saltdogs.
Hello, RailCats fans, and welcome back to the RailCats Talk. I'm Kyle Savinich, and we have another series win. The RailCats took 2 of 3 against the Lincoln Saltdogs in Lincoln, and I would say that last time we played Lincoln, and I didn't really pay that close attention to Lincoln, and I didn't realize how far down they were in the standings. And now that the RailCats have beaten the Lincoln Saltdogs in the 3-game series, one, they evened out the season series, but that's not the only thing that's interesting here. The other interesting thing is the RailCats are no longer the worst team in the league. It is now the Lincoln Saltdogs. They are 15 and 26 15 and 26, and the RailCats are 16 and 24. Now the point percentage isn't, it's still off, but what this has shown, what I think this has shown, I don't know if it's going to stay consistent, but with the consistency it has shown, I'm hoping it's going to stay. So the big questions going into the biggest questions when we go through the games was, what was the turnaround going to be like going from Winnipeg and having, realistically, there was only 2 players that really played with Winnipeg that was from like the Black Sox organization because of the visa issues. And, that was Howard Rodriguez and Nick Pizzetta. Really the only 2. I know Hunter and Bo got in there, but the other 2 were the only ones that really actually played. And the question was, were we going to see a RailCats team go from having really good pitching, offense was there when you needed it, to back to the old, to where the pitching fell apart and there was a lack of offense? I think what it answered is, I don't necessarily, the big answer when I was thinking about it was, okay, you had Cooper Edwards, who was on the 4-game winning streak, was the catcher, and on those, on that 4-game winning streak, the RailCats really only suffered, giving up 3 runs, and that was the second game, and that was with Ty Tiedemann, who we've kind of known that has given up hits. So I don't necessarily want to call that like an issue as far as like a pitcher or a catcher calling the pitches, but they only gave up 3 runs. They gave up a total of 6 runs in those 4 games, and really one game where they gave up 3, and another game against Lincoln where they gave up 2. Or actually, they only gave up 1. I forget, they have them flip-flop backwards. They really only gave them 1. So really, you gave up 5 runs. So you gave up 5 runs in a matter of 4 games. So the question was going to be, is this a definition of, or a lack of catching calling behind the plate? And I still think that's still a storyline to go with, because Guillermo Quintana did play in the first 2 games of this Lincoln series, and you gave up a total of 10 runs, and in that last game of the series you gave up 1 with Cooper Edwards behind the plate, but yet again you also had Peyton Long, who was up there throwing. So I'm not sure where to kind of go in this circumstance, or in this situation, of what the storyline was going to be. But really the storyline behind it was, the biggest storyline was, how was the transition from Winnipeg to Lincoln going to transpire? And I think what we saw in this was, again, something that I preached throughout the entire year is when this team gives up small runs here and there, there's not a whole lot. Not the whole lot. Not there's going to be more times than not this team will find a way to win a game. And realistically, they could have swept this series, but in game one, it didn't really go their way, and I'll get into that situation in when I review game one. I think that was a little bit of a lack of base running and a little lack of like hustle to a certain extent. And I don't want to put full blame on Miguel Sierra when I get to that point, because he had a great series. I think he came back from this leg injury and came back a whole lot better, and it's showing offense. And now, can he keep that consistently? That was the big thing, was if Miguel Sierra was going to struggle when we come back home for the 9-game homestand, were you looking at maybe a Howard Rodriguez or moving Marcos Gonzalez back to short and then bringing in Gio Diaz? There's a whole lot of storyline going on here. And if the team goes the way it is going now, it's going to be very hard for Lamar Rogers to put this lineup together, because if everyone's producing at the level they are, there's going to be a lot of shifting around, and it's going to be who's going to be the odd person out in this puzzle. So those are going to be questions that I'm going to ask, but slash answer maybe at the end. So let's go ahead and get into game one here. So the game one, it's one of those, okay, so Ty Tiedemann, he starts the game off. Or no, my bad, not Ty Tiedemann, that's Carlos Sanabria, my bad. So Carlos Sanabria was one of the players from the Visas that we were questioning how he was going to do. And in game one, the first inning, it didn't seem like it was going to be very productive, giving up 3 runs in an inning, giving up a double, a walk, an error by him on a throw to try to get, I think, drag him over, and it advanced a bunch of people over. Then another walk to Nick Anderson, and then Baeza. I have it, but I can't say it. They score 3 runs in that inning, and it was just kind of like, oh, here we kind of go again. Of they're scoring the 3 runs, and this is where things start out bad and lead into more. Now, and then Lincoln does get one more in the third, but it's not like that's at that point. It's like, okay, you're down by 4 in the third inning. You still have 6 more innings to gain it back, and we thought maybe in the 6th inning we were going to see that. It starts off with a Basabe single, and then Rincon blast a home run for his, I said 11th of the year. And that's another storyline that it's going to be a fun one to watch. Yeah, his 11th of the year. He gets a 3-run home run, and then after that, Marcos Gonzalez singles, Castillo strikes out, but then Guillermo gets an RBI double, scoring in Marcos Gonzalez, and you're thinking, okay, here's some momentum. We're going to build that momentum. There was nothing really after that kind of happened, and not until the 9th inning did it really, I think it was the 9th, where it got really interesting. And, I know that we've had this discussion as far as laying down bunts in situations of time when you need at least 1 run. And I know in the 9th, you're trying to get that going, but I think at the point they were at, I know, so when we go into the 9th here, Miguel Sierra gets a double. And I know at this point, Gio Diaz was kind of struggling to get on base and get hits when I kind of, let me see here real quick before I start making a bunch of assumptions that I don't want to. The 21st. So, he only had, going back to the Winnipeg series, 1 for 4 in 2 games. He really wasn't productively hitting. So I understand with his speed, you're going to want him to bunt, and he does lay down really good bunts, but sometimes it also feels that when they do this, the opportunity, it should almost be a guarantee with the way the team has been playing, but sometimes it just falls apart. And you know, um, it just doesn't happen the way we want it to, because then, you know, Valera, so Gio bunts over Sierra, and then Jackson Valera he gets on base because of a fielder's choice. And this is where the part it got interesting was. All right, so the ball was hit to second, which I thought the ball was actually hit to third. I thought it was hit to third. I have my book I think is a little bit different than theirs. Let me see here. This was overtime game. I wrote down a fielder's choice. So I might have been wrong. I just wrote down a fielder's choice. No, I guess I had a 4-2 on there. Okay, so it did have. I know the infielders were brought in, and the ball was hit to second, and with the infielders brought in, as Sierra, you have two choices. You either have a choice of one, as soon as that ball's hit, no hesitation, as soon as that ball hit, you're going home. Option two is live to fight another day. Well, he picked option one, but the issue with option one was that there was a slight hesitation. And I necessarily wouldn't put this on Lamar Rogers at third coaching this one, because it's such rewatching it back, it's such a minute millisecond of a situation where I don't think you saying something was going to dictate what that runner was going to do. I think Sierra had an idea of what to do. The situation would have been, okay, the ball's hit. Do we risk as soon as the ball's being hit, go? But I think in that situation, I know it's easier to go back and say, well, hindsight's 2020. In the heat of the moment, I understand it, but it should have been, okay, the ball's hit on the ground. It's like a line drive. You freeze. If that ball goes, if it gets past the second baseman, you're off. You're tying the game up. If the second baseman grabs it, make him make a throw to first. Right? How many times this year, I mean, the RailCats have benefited from errors, the simple throws from short or second that have lead to errors. And, Jackson Flair is not the feetest of feet, or, the quickest of players to run down base, but at least that still forces him to make a throw. And then you could also say on the flip side, it forces him to make a throw to home. But the issue was, if the play was bang bang at the plate, I would have said, okay, I'm not going to be as harsh on this. But Miguel Sierra was out by a mile. Like, there was no, he was out by a mile. Like, there was nothing that you were going to be able to convince me otherwise that he should have just fought another day. And you would have, a Basabe that's going to come up. Granted that, he popped out to third base, but I think the situation would have been a little bit different, because I think in this game versus game 2 of this series was outside of a different kind of game. I saw a lot in this game of trying to swing for the fences and trying to be productive when there was no production being had. And I think a little bit that had to do with the pressure of the time, because, again, you were down by 4 runs, and most of the time you're only producing, 3 runs a game, 3-4 runs. So, you're putting pressure upon yourself to try to get to that point, and you're just not, because the pressure is already against you. It's easy to sit there and go, well, he should have fought, should have just stayed back, and you may see on the other side. But I'm just saying, I think if we go back and watch that play, that is a decision made based on the base runner. The game plan, like I said, was probably contact, go, but there was that slight hesitation because I think he was thinking, okay, well, the second baseman's right there. I shouldn't go, but I'm going to go. Like, there was just that little bit of a hesitation. I don't even think if he would have took off on a dead sprint, he would have still been out by a mile. So it kind of changes the scenario a little bit. But I just think that was one of those boneheaded, not bonehead, I want to say boneheaded. There was a Valera boneheaded play where he thought, I think he forgot how many outs there were, and he just took off and got doubled off. Like, that was a momentum killer. This one was not really boneheaded. It was more of a risky play that there was no reward to. So looking at the stat lines in game one, Sanabria gets lost. He goes 5 innings, gives up 4 hits, 4 runs, 3 walks, 7 strikeouts. Pinto comes in, gets a strikeout. Valdez comes in and just gives up a hit and a walk. And then Josh Smith comes in and he gets gets 1 strikeout. Gio Diaz went 1 for 4 with a strikeout. Valera went 1 for 5. Del Valle went 0 for 2 with a strikeout. He also got hurt, I believe, in this one, diving for a ball that he lost in the sun. I think there was like a lower body injury. Nothing really came of it because he did come into the next game. Olivia Basabe went 1 for 3 with a run and a strikeout. Rincon went 2 for 3 with 2 RBIs, a run, and a walk. Marcus Gonzalez went 1 for 3 with a run, 1 walk, and 1 strikeout. LG Castillo went 0 for 4 with 4 strikeouts, or not 4 strikeouts, 1 strikeout, 0 for 4. Guillermo Catano went 1 for 4 with an RBI and a strikeout. Bockley, who came in, was actually the DH, because he was the DH. He went 0 for 3, and then Sierra went 1 for 3, a walk and a strikeout. And he got the late double in that situation. So it was one of those that I was kind of concerned that he wasn't going to do anything productive. He did do something productive when, went 1 for 3. So you give him the benefit of the doubt on that one. That game it just didn't go your way. And sometimes it's going to happen in these games, especially tight games. And the RailCats have been playing tight games. If you go all the way back, I mean, you could say the second game of Lincoln, you're down by 3 runs. Anything higher than that was the first game against Lincoln. I mean, I know, they won the game in Winnipeg 6-3, but most of the times you're playing these close games, besides the last game where you won by 4 runs. They've been playing close games, and majority of the time they've been winning those close games, so that's more of a positive than a negative. If this team can keep it close, more times than not, they're probably going to win these games. So it's just a matter of the pitching going to withstand the pressure and hold so the offense can finally get going. Game 2 was the exciting one, the 10-inning game that lasted just over 3 hours. And I looked at the clock, I said, wow, it's a 3-hour game. This game is flying. This game flew. The game was engaged. You were engaged the entire time. There was drama. There was emotion. You had Gio Diaz getting hit 2 times, and Lincoln getting like 5 people ejected because there's just and this could just be a testament to Lincoln being a bad team and them not being able to handle it, or being crybabies, I guess. Granted, I understand the strike zone wasn't the best, but it wasn't the best on both sides. There was some calls that you were just like, but he's calling it both ways, so you can't argue that. I get the benches clearing in Lincoln and when they were in Gary. I understand the frustration, and it doesn't help that Gio Diaz is struggling and he's getting plunked because he just wants an opportunity to hit the ball and he's not getting those opportunities. Now, it's going to help your on base percentage, but he wants to be productive, and he was productive in game 2. He was 2 for 3, so and getting on base, I think 3 times, or 5 times in total, however you want to put it. I'm just saying, I think going into that game, he is a player that wants to hit, and being buzzed in the head is never a safe option. I think there was a comment, I saw it on Facebook about, I forget who said something about the RailCats and their pitching, and I think someone from the Salt Dog fan base said the more the concern is that not that they're pitching wildly, but they're pitching and it's going and buzzing people's towers. Like that I get, 95-mile-an-hour fastball, even an 86-mile-an-hour curveball, fastball, however you want to put it, is still dangerous when you throw it at someone's head. Like, that's just something you don't want to do. I'm not saying in this situation that I think either that Lincoln was trying to specifically hit Gio Diaz. It was just a circumstance because it was right after Marcos Gonzalez's 2-run home run that right it was it was a 2-run home run, and I think he did a bat flip. This whole thing with bat flip thing, it's so annoying. It's a bat flip. Get over yourselves. Like, yeah, you gave up a home run. You are more mad that you threw a terrible pitch and you're just going to take it out on someone because they bat flip. Like, you need to look at yourself in the mirror, because how many times does a pitcher get excited and show emotion on the mound, but like you don't see a batter just going out there and throwing their bat at them? Like, no, that just doesn't happen. So like, you're still playing that stupid game of let's buzz the tower because you're mad about someone bat flip. Even if it was on the RailCats, I would still be salty about it, because you don't. And I know that kind of came at the end with Valdez pitching. He was a little bit wild, and like I was like, oh, you shouldn't be doing that, even if you're not trying to. Like, just try to stay away. Like, try to keep this game down a little bit. But the RailCats ended up winning a game where they were just going back and forth, back and forth. I mean, Lincoln scores 1 in the second. RailCats get 2 in the third. Lincoln ties the game up at 4. They take the lead at 4-2. The RailCats tie it back up in the 5th with Rincon driving in. It was actually two bases loaded situations where Carlos walked and Jackson Valera walked, which brought in Jose Contreras and Miguel Sierra. So like, that wasn't anything. That was just good hitting. And I think you saw this game was the prime example of, you saw some players swing for the fences and they kind of got down on the count and they kind of recollect themselves. I know there was a Jackson Valera at bat that he took a really good pitch and it was like, ooh, that was a really good one. But then like, he just had the veteran mindset of, I know, because he wasn't getting the best pitches. Like, he had really, I think it was, I forget what count he had. I think it was like a 2-2 count or 3-2 count or a 3-1 count. He had a really good, and then he knew that he was going to eventually get a ball so he could walk. So like, those are the certain situations where like, oh, this is really good. And you like to see that. Even when we went into the 9th inning, you saw a little bit, or not in the 10th inning, you kind of saw a little bit of a change. It wasn't everyone trying to hit a home run. It was just, let's get the ball in play and give us what the pitcher take what the pitchers are giving us. And that is a slight change that I'm starting to see in some games with the RailCats, and especially a game that goes back and forth like this, where you're giving up 1 or 2 runs an inning. Yeah, you necessarily don't want to see that, but it gives your offense time to kind of kick it into gear and know that, okay, we just scored 2 runs and they got 1 back, or they got 2 back. The game's evened up. We're down by 2, but we know we have the confidence and the team ability to do that. And you saw that in the 5th inning when they tied the game up on walks. And then you go into the 6th and they get 1, and then you go into the 8th inning with the RailCats down by 1, and it's Guillermo Quintana coming through after Marcos Gonzalez doubled, and then Valera gets him over, but that's beside the point here or there. But Quintana drives in and Marcos Gonzalez, so you're like, okay, this is better. And then we're going in. So I just feel at that point, Andres Diaz didn't have his best game. He went 6 innings, gave up 9 hits, 5 earned runs, but the offense was there to back him up, and that's the kind of things that we need to see. This was a big improvement game that I've seen from them that I know is capable if we're not allowing those big run innings, because you never, the RailCats could have given up 6 runs in 1 inning, but you would have been so demoralized that you might not be able to catch that, because it's a bigger hill to climb than being just down by 2 runs. That's a little bit easier, because I think this team can battle back, and they showed that. So you go into the 10th inning, and this runs into the situation of this is all sort of jacked up because of the point streak doesn't help anything. You have Olivier Brasabi that's on second base, and Valera bunts him over, and uh, I can't, I don't fully remember everything off the top of my head, um, because it should have been Valera. I could have swore, but no, it was Marcus. My bad. Marcus Gonzalez bunted him over. Valera gets on with a single, I believe. Del Valle gets on, and then it just kind of keeps going. And Carlos Rincon, he drives in a couple runs. Like you put on the you get the 1 run, so you take the lead, and then you tack on 2 more runs for insurance because you needed that, because Lincoln ended up scoring 1 run, and that was, I think that's a little bit of maybe a fatigue with Nate Alexander, because he's not used to pitching more than 1 inning. So I think the fatigue aspect of it kind of came. So I was kind of surprised that Nate Alexander was the one to kind of come in and pitch 2 innings, which he did really. I mean, he gave up 3 hits, 1 run, which wasn't earned because of the ghost runner on second. He gave up 1 walk and 2 strikeouts. You're gonna have those kind of games, and it's fine. You ended up winning, and this was just I think this was a big momentum swing for the RailCats as far as going into yesterday's game. I think Lincoln's just frustrated with the RailCats in general because of or the situation that they're in general, and it's not a good one, being in the bottom of the barrel, and feeling like you should be able to beat this team, and feeling that maybe something's going against you, which I necessarily didn't see. I just think that they're not happy about something, and I'm not sure what it is. So you go into game 3 here, and Peyton Long has another great outing. He gives up 5 hits, but that happens. But you only give up 1 run. Like, you take that. You go 7 innings, you give up 5 hits, 1 run. I'm fine with that. 2 walks, 3 strikeouts. You're good to go. Like, I'm okay with that. And I think in my RailCats quick minute I said 4 strikeouts and you got 3 strikeouts. I must have misread it somewhere. It happens. But then you look up and down the lineup, and everyone except a handful of people get hits, and this is where I think it's going to hinder Cooper Edwards from getting more playing time. Is you're going 0 for 4 when you do have those opportunities. You may be calling a great game, but the issue is if you're not being productive beyond when you're not behind the plate and in the batter's box, we can't have you batting an 0 for 5, an 0 for 4 or an 0 for 5 striking out 2 times. Like, that's just not going to be beneficial. At least with Guillermo, you're going to be able to get a hit. He's going to come through clutch when he needs to. So it's a trade-off that we don't have, like, a really good catcher behind the plate, and either way you're gonna divide the cookie how it's pick your poison on what you want. I think Cooper Edwards calls a better game, but if he's not going to be offensively productive, what's the point of having you in a lineup that's already struggling to be offensive? So it's kind of what you have to take with a grain of salt on that situation. But I mean, you get the job done when you have runners on, and you have the power bats up. Marcus Gonzalez starts it off with a 3-run home run. Jose Contreras is starting to warm up, but he gets a 2-run home run, but he also went 3 for 4 on the day. So it's like, all right, is he starting to heat up? And then on the flip side, you have LG Castillo, and I think he was battling an illness, but on the flip side, he's been, I wouldn't say he's been struggling like to produce runs, because he's getting RBIs, but I think the consistency isn't there as far as getting on base and getting those solid hits that we're used to seeing from him. So it's one of those, like, are we going to start seeing a rotation in the outfield of what's going to happen with that? And I know, like, Del Valle is struggling with potential leg injury, so it could be that may not see him out in the field right now. So you may just see Gio Diaz out there, but you have that better You have not a better option. You have another option for him to play because Gio can play in any position on the field wherever you want it. I think this was just a game that the RailCats had in lock and key. I know there was again Gio. He didn't get hit. He got walked, but it was up towards him, and he mouths off to the pitcher because every time he's up the bat, he's getting the ball thrown in his head. He's not happy about it. So it kind of clears the benches. But yet again, I think the RailCats had the right mindset of when that did happen, because they were trying. The bullpens came out. I get the bullpens came out, but you can't, and you saw like the players are like, no, like this is not what we wanted. Like this is not how we want this to be. This is we have a player that's frustrated, but we're not frustrated at the situation because we're up, but it's still frustrating to see that happen to one of your guys. You can take it for what it is at the grain of salt. It's just annoying, I guess. I think they're just annoyed, and Gio's just annoyed because he went 0 for 4 and he keeps getting balls thrown at him. Like, he's just not happy, about the situation. This was a good series for the RailCats. I think good back-to-back series, something that's a positive to see. When we go here now to the standings, granted, you're still 8 games back from first place. I'm not concerned about winning the division like that. That's probably just not going to happen. I'm more concerned about that 4th spot. And right now, you're 4.5 games back from the Chicago Dogs. You're 1 game back from Lake Country to get back into that 5th spot. These are just the series that you're going to have to take and you're going to have to win. And like I said, it's not going to get much easier when you go and you see that you have to play Kane County. Now you go back to Winnipeg. Oh, actually, I thought we didn't play Winnipeg at home this year. That's odd. We played Winnipeg like 3 times this year. Yeah, we do. So they do come back to us. So we do see Winnipeg again on Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So that's going to be an interesting matchup again, see how that one rolls around. But then you got Milwaukee again. And then, the last little bit before the All-Star break, you're looking at Kansas City again. You're going to Kansas City. You're going to Sioux Falls. You play Chicago, and then so like it's going to be interesting how it all kind of spends out. But I don't want to jump over the series. The big series that's coming up is against Kane County, who is the best team in the East, and you lost 3 of 4 to them on when you last played them. So it's one of those you're going to see a lot. You're going to see a lot better team. You're going to see the team that can pitch, but you're also going to see the team that can really get hit. And that showed the last time the RailCats did play Kane County, because Kane County scored 9 in one game, 1 in the other game, 3-6. So it was not a high up and down, but it's just one of those. I think this is going to be a back and forth game. I don't, we're going to see Tiedemann, Irwin, and Sanabria. Tiedemann's going to give up hits, and Kane County knows how to get those hits. And I think Chris Irwin might have struggled a little bit. Let me see here. Against Kane County, I think I have the wrong season. I thought I had all this already played out, but I don't. Let's see here. So we're going to see Tiedemann first, and the last time he played Kane County, he gave up he pitched 5 innings, gave up 6 runs, 3 earned, 7 hits, 2 walks, 1 strikeout. So like he got the loss in that one, but you see the 3 earns. That was just, he's going to give up the hits. We've already established that. It's just a matter of the defense is going to play well enough behind him to prevent those 7 hits to turn into 6 runs. And then in game 2, we're going to see Chris Irwin potentially. This could all change. He didn't play King County this year, so we'll see how that one rolls around. But having a Winnipeg where he went 6 innings and just giving up 2 hits, that's a positive. That was a positive trend versus what he was doing prior to that. So just see if he's kind of back. And then the big question is going to be a Carlos Sanabria, which, he's given up in the past 2 games, at least 4 runs. Milwaukee and Cleburne, he gave it 3, but then the Cleburne where he came in for the one, uh, the third inning, gave up 2 runs. Like, it kind of fluctuated to a certain extent on that point. I mean, his ERAs bring his ERA down a little bit, but his ERA really skyrocketed after the Cleburne game. That was so. I'm just gonna see. I'm interested. He still has yet to get a win on the season. It's gonna be interesting to see. I don't know how it's gonna work out. One other thing before I wrap this up. So when listening to the first game of the Lincoln series, the RailCats audio wasn't working for like the first 15 minutes, so I switched over to Lincoln broadcast. And I'm not one to try to critique because I know I have my flaws. I have a lot of flaws. But not knowing how to pronounce opposing players' names when you're a play-by-play broadcaster isn't something that's really looks really good on your resume, because you should be able to go talk to the other play-by-play announcer and say, hey, how do you pronounce this? When you do a Francisco Del Valle and you don't change it, and a Carlos Sanabria, and it just and you don't have, if you go back and you like watch it and listen to it, you'll see it. There was like the graphics for like Carlos Rincon and all the players that came back with visa issues. They didn't have hits on there. They didn't have anything. They didn't have any kind of production for them on there. So like, oh, that was his first hit of this year. Like, no, it's not. It's Carlos Rincon. Like, you do a little bit of research. Like, I don't mean to be that person, but you gotta make a better product. If the league itself is trying to make a better product, that's how you're gonna have to do it. Is you're gonna have. I understand that it starts with the broadcasting portion of it, and I get it that not everyone's going to listen to Lincoln, and Lincoln. There could be things Andrew Mild is saying about opposing players that I have no idea about, because I don't listen to the other person's, the home people's broadcast. So like that, maybe that's just my ignorance to the situation, but it's still one of those, like, Francisco Del Valle has been in the league for 2 years now. Like, that should be something that is kind of known. Carlos Sanabria, like, I think I called him Sanabria because I think that's one of the announcements that I had. But then when I talked to Lamar Rogers, he said Sanabria, and then that's what Andrew Mild is saying. So like, obviously they know something. That's just something as a play-by-play person. That's when I was kind of doing that stuff. That's something that I took pride in, is knowing someone's name. And even when in here, I still like to know everyone's name. Just opposing players, I'm not that concerned about. So I'm like, if I don't really know that, I'll just say the first name and like kind of move on. But like, I want to know our players' names, and I want to do that research to get that, because to get that knowledge, because they deserve that respect. Looking at Kane County, again, top of the leaderboard on the east side. Looking at what they just did, they played Lake Country in a 3-game set, and they took 2 of 3. They also took 2 of 3 against Kansas City. They swept Chicago. So you're obviously seeing a winning team. The last time they lost a series was June 7th to the 9th, when they lost to Chicago. But outside of that, they have been a little warm, a little hot. They are 8-2 in their last 10. The RailCats are 6-4. The only downside is that Lake Country is 6-4, but Cleburne and Chicago are both 4-6. Milkmen are 5-5. So rundown of the East real quick: Kane County on top, Milkmen Railroaders, Dogs, Dockhounds, RailCats. Looking at the West, Fargo leads the West Division at 24 and 15. Then you have Sioux Falls. Then you have the Monarchs, Gold Eyes, Explorers, and Salt Dogs. That is how the league kind of wraps itself up. So yeah, I think that's the moral of the story. Good job. Let's keep the momentum going. It's going to be a big series decision that's going to, our big series, a good testament, a good tape measure game to see how well this team has constructed themselves, and see if they can continue being productive and kind of getting this rolling. Like I said, this team needs to be like a game or a half game out of a playoff spot, in my eyes, to see as a successful first half, quote unquote, of the season after how it started, to really feel like this team is going in the right direction. Because you had 2 good series, but can you maintain that? Even if they were to lose 2 of 3 against King County is a good team, but you got to lose 2 or 3. You can't get swept by them. And then Winnipeg, you want to win that. You've already swept them once, and they're just in a playoff spot. They're at 500, so like you're not battling a winning team. You're battling a mediocre 500 team. That's what you just got to strive to get to. And the closer you get to being 500, the better chances you are to be in a playoff spot. Because right now the Chicago Dogs are at 19 and 20, so like you just trying to build that momentum. Get a nice little win streak there. Lose a game, that's fine. You want to take 3 steps forward before you take a step back, almost. So just gotta start winning series. I think this team can do it. They have proven odd and end games here. This is the first time in a stretch where they've proven it consistently. So hopefully it just continues. But that wraps it up for me. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, rest of your evening, whenever you're watching this. And go Cats.
Payoff pitch. Called strike 3. You can bend the beam into a W.